10. Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre. The Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre is one of the strangest archaeological sites in the world. It was once used as a place for ceremonies in the Mayan kingdom. Today, it's located in Belize. To understand this cave a little better, we need to look at what the Maya believed in. They thought that the universe was divided into three main parts: the sky, the earth, and the underworld. They also thought that underground caves were portals to the underworld, which they thought was ruled by death gods. One of those caves is now known as the legendary Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre, and it, like its siblings, are as impressive as they are eerie. In fact, some of the caverns inside the cave are over 70 feet tall. There's also a stream that runs through the cave, where the Mayans believed Chak, their rain god, was born. Maya activity inside the cave went on from between 250 to 900 AD, and we know this because of artifacts found inside the cave, probably left as offerings for the gods of the dead. What's really interesting is that the offerings differed throughout the years. For example, archaeologists found that during times of extreme drought, instead of offering fresh cobs of maize to their gods, the Maya would offer humans instead, in bloody and often brutal sacrifices. I suppose that makes sense, in a disturbing way. It's one less mouth to feed, and it saves on corn. I don't know if I agree with their methods, but whoever decided on that strategy was clearly trying to be practical while they appeased the bloodthirsty gods. 9. Cave Temple of the Moon. Another amazing cave from what is now Latin America is the Cave Temple of the Moon at Machu Picchu. It is a vast complex considered to be one of the most mysterious temples anywhere inside the great Inca city. It's located directly underneath the peak of Huayna Picchu, and despite its name, it has nothing to do with the Inca moon goddess called Mamakila. It was carved into a naturally occurring cave inside the peak of the mountain, which places it at an absurd 9,000 feet above sea level. And here's where things get really mystical. Nobody actually knows the purpose of the cave temple. Archaeologists aren't even sure where the name Temple of the Moon comes from. The only thing in it is a rather ominous-looking altar, where, just like their Mayan neighbors to the north, the Inca may have been performing human sacrifices. However, nobody can say for certain what the Inca were doing high up in the mountain cave. To be frank, I don't think they were just observing the stars, though. 8. Costa Rica Stone Spheres. The Costa Rica Stone Spheres have been mystifying experts for decades. They are located on the island of Isla del Cano. In total, there are about 300 of these strange spheres, which experts call the Diqui spheres. It's believed that they were probably crafted by the ancient Diqui culture, though why they left 300 circular balls spread throughout the region is still a bit of a mystery. The Diqui culture was one of complexity in the valley of the Rio Grande de Taraba. They showed up around the year 1500 BC and thrived until 800 AD, primarily in farming communities. They had a system of tribal government, which is known as a chiefdom. Around the year 800 AD, the small farming settlements turned into larger communities, and the people started building bigger creations. It was during this time that the Diqui people started carving the mysterious stone spheres and placing them in important zones within cities and settlements. They were usually placed in public plazas or outside the homes of the ruling chieftains. But what were they made out of? According to Heritage Daily, the spheres, some of which are over 6 feet in diameter, were carved from igneous rock, kind of like basalt, then smoothed by sand into a circle. They were lost when the Diqui vanished in the 16th century with the arrival of the Spanish, not discovered again until the 1930s. But when they were discovered, they caused quite a stir. I mean, wouldn't that make sense? They look like cannonballs from a cannon big enough to win a war by itself. I'd be scared of them if I discovered them. 7. Pella. Pella is the birthplace of one of the most famous rulers in the world, Alexander the Great. This archaeological site is next to the modern town of the same name in the north of Greece. According to most scholars, Pella was originally built as the capital of Macedon by King Archelaus I, back around 413 BC. Pella was also where Philip II was born, Alexander's father. While it's true that Alexander III of Macedon rose to the throne at the age of 20 and ended up building a massive empire that turned Macedon into a huge power, it was actually his father Philip who brought together the forces of classical Greece and gifted Alexander the fighting force that would take the world. As of today, Pella is little more than a grassy ruin. Much of it still hasn't even been excavated, including the royal palace. That means there are probably still ancient treasures waiting to be uncovered. The city ran into some trouble after the last king of Macedonia was defeated in 148 BC by the Romans, who then made Macedonia into one of their provinces. However, Pella wasn't destroyed by fighting. It was an earthquake in the year 90 BC that was the city's final undoing. 6. Ancient Citadel of Narankala. The ancient Citadel of Narankala is located at the edge of the Caspian Sea in southern Russia, specifically in the Republic of Dagestan. The citadel was built in the 6th century AD as part of a defensive system to protect the city of Derbent and the people of Transcaucasia against the invading nomads in the north. Along with the citadel, there was a huge perimeter wall to block any advancing army moving through the mountains, as well as seawalls to defend against enemies arriving by boat. In Persian, Narankala translates roughly to the Sun Fortress. It was built on top of the hill that stands closest to the sea, used to keep enemies from passing. It also helped form a protected harbor for ships. This wasn't a boring citadel either. It was a huge fortress with a water supply system made from ceramic piping. It's also fascinating because it has survived to this day and still overlooks the modern city of Derbent. For once, a fortification actually worked, and the wall perimeter was never breached, allowing the area to prosper and grow from an ancient city into a modern one. Would you like to live in a walled fortress? It's probably extra safe and a pretty cool place to play hide and seek. Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 5. Bedlam Burials. A bizarre archaeological site was discovered in the least expected place, the middle of the street in London. According to the BBC, archaeologists uncovered a burial ground underneath Liverpool Street that was used from between 1569 to 1738, with many of the bodies exhumed having been victims of the Black Death. About 3,000 skeletons have so far been excavated from this massive burial ground. It actually took a team of over 60 archaeologists to remove the skeletons and record the ancient evidence, as it seems this place, what is being called the Bedlam Burial Site, is arguably the most valuable cemetery in the entire city, representing 3 distinct centuries of death. It's giving archaeologists a unique chance to study and understand how Londoners lived back when most of them were dying from the plague. Another really amazing thing is that archaeologists also discovered an ancient Roman road that runs directly underneath the graveyard, meaning this single location that had been unknown before construction crews stumbled upon the ghoulish skeletons has been used for at least 2,000 years, turned from Roman road into Black Death burial, into metropolitan London. Just think, if you're walking around in London, you might be treading above the bones of people who lived thousands of years ago. Weird, huh? 4. Combeo. The Combeo tomb, also known as the Windows of Combeo, is a group of tombs built by the Cajamarca culture of ancient Peru. From the outside, it looks as though someone carved dozens and dozens of square windows into the side of a mountain. However, these aren't windows. They are individual tombs in which an elite person from the society would be placed, kind of like putting a corpse into one of those lockers at the morgue. Now that's what I call creepy. From what archaeologists can gather, these tombs date to around the year 500 BC, and there are more than just the tombs at Combeo. Tombs are all over the region, with huge necropolises carved periodically into the cliff walls. However, one of the downsides of creating tombs so out in the open is that they tend to be pillaged. Archaeologists have barely studied any of these tombs because they've been destroyed by people searching for grave goods. Almost all the archaeological value has been robbed or otherwise vandalized. You have to respect the architecture and effort behind this unique burial tradition though. 3. Giant Stone Ship. The Jelling stone ship is one of the more interesting archaeological sites in Denmark. The stone ship can be found at a Viking burial complex shadowed by two huge burial mounds that were constructed by the legendary King Harold Bluetooth back in the 10th century AD. As you may already know, ship burials were pretty common with the Vikings. Someone of great importance would be buried, and a massive ship, more like the shape of a ship, would be built of stones and buried with them, along with grave goods in the burial mounds as well. It was believed that the ship would help facilitate the dead person's journey to the afterlife. Kinda makes sense, right? The Jelling stone ship was made by King Harold for his father Gorm the Old, or sometimes called Gorm the Languid. He ruled from between 936 to 958, and is believed to be the very first head of what would turn into the Danish monarchy. Amazingly, the ship is still there today, and so are the runestones bearing the inscription left by Harold, memorializing his father for eternity. 2. Temple of Amun. The Temple of Amun is a crumbling ruin in Egypt's Siwa oasis, deep in the middle of the desert and over 180 miles from the nearest major town. The word Siwa actually comes from the Arabic word Wahat Siwa, which means protector of the Egyptian sun god Amun-Ra. As you can probably tell already, the temple itself is dedicated to the Egyptian sun god Amun, and somehow, despite years of sitting and baking in the inhospitable desert, the temple has remained in relatively good condition. It's only a short distance away from the actual town, which itself has been populated since Neolithic times, with its historical records dating back to the days of the pharaohs beginning in 2000 BC. While the Siwa oasis is fascinating and full of history, the temple is really the highlight of the ancient settlement. This is because within the temple was an oracle who was famous all over the Mediterranean region. In the year 700 BC, the oracle prophesied that Cambyses of Persia, the son of Cyrus the Great, would fail in his conquest of Africa, which he did. He was so angry at the oracle that he sent 50,000 men to burn the temple down. However, legend says that those 50,000 men vanished without a trace and never actually made it to the Temple of Amun. All I know is I wouldn't try to vandalize the temple if I were visiting. 1. Creepy face carvings. Archaeologists have been left baffled by some strange sculptures with eerie faces that have been dated back to 8,000 years ago. The bizarre figurines were found in one of the weirdest archaeological sites in Siberia. The humanoid figurines have odd features that kind of make them look like human-fish hybrids. Weirdly enough, nobody is entirely sure who made these creepy effigies or what they're meant to depict. Scientists also don't know what purpose they could have possibly served. As for the actual archaeological site, it's located on the banks of the Danube River. The settlement was inhabited over 12,000 years ago by a mixture of cultures, mostly farmers who had migrated from the east into southern Europe, along with the native hunters and gatherers. Archaeologists have called it the first city in Europe because of how organized the living arrangements were. The place is called Lepensky Vir, and it has been excavated multiple times since its discovery in the 1960s. Other than the haunting faces carved of stone, archaeologists have also found proof that this very city marked the period of time when the societies of hunters and gatherers was changing to one of farmers. Isn't it amazing what we can find out about our ancestors from 10,000 years ago? It just makes you appreciate a modern world a little bit more.
8. Powerful ancient temples. On the islands of Gozo and Malta, a well-preserved temple complex known as the Gigantia Temples is said to be one of the most important and well-preserved sites in the world. Older than the Stonehenge and even the Egyptian pyramids. It wasn't until recently it was proven to be younger than the Turkish site of Göbekli Tepe. Its name in Maltese means giant, which makes sense because there are some stones that weigh over 50 tons. Animal bones discovered inside the temple indicate strange rituals were once conducted here. Fieldwork done in Malta by archaeologists show that buried deep within the earth were traces of ancient DNA from animal skulls and bones. In its heyday, the area probably numbered several thousand people who visited the elaborate sacred sites, but after 1,500 years, residents mysteriously vanished. Drilling into the earth core, archaeologists studied sediment using carbon dating to understand how the area could sustain so many people for so long, only to later be abandoned. Researchers found that in centuries past, soil erosion and climate conditions worsened, affecting not only the food and harvest, but the livestock that fed the people. Scientists also found that the number of trees diminished and the bones of the humans living at the time were wrapped with evidence of dietary deficiencies. After analyzing tree rings in the area, researchers also found that the region suffered a catastrophic climate change around 2350 BC, which may have been caused by a volcanic eruption. Even though the people of the area struggled to survive, the temple complex at Gigantia remains as a testament to the importance of the area and the lasting legacy of these ancient people. 7. Lasco Cave Paintings. A complex of caves in southwestern France, Lasco is estimated to be about 20,000 years old. Lasco was first discovered in 1940, immediately being given statutory historic monument protection that same year. It's just one of several decorated caves in the valley. The hauntingly beautiful cave paintings were in peril of being lost to history. The paintings depict large animals that are once native to the region cover the walls of the cave. The Paleolithic cave paintings are renowned for their exceptional quality, size, and sophistication. Over 200 archaeologists, anthropologists, and other scientists gathered in Paris to discuss the plight of the treasures in the Lasco caves in order to find a solution to preserve them. But the paintings weren't the only thing to be preserved within the cave. Nearly 2,000 figures that can be grouped into 3 main categories, including animals, human figures, and abstract signs. Over 360 of the paintings are horses, with 90 stags and a number of drawings that represent cattle, felines, and other animals. One enormous bull that measures 17 feet long is considered the largest animal ever discovered in cave art so far. Various sections have been identified in the cave, including the Great Hall of Bulls, the Shaft of the Dead Man, and the Chamber of Felines, to name a few. Sadly, since the year 2000, the Lasco caves have been threatened by a fungus blamed on the air conditioning system, combined with high-powered lights in the presence of too many visitors, disturbing the site. As black mold started to grow, authorities closed the caves to not only visitors, but scientists and preservationists in an effort to preserve these ancient artworks. An important cultural heritage to the history of humanity, Lasco is one of the crowning jewels in rock art, offering an insight into the ancient culture, beliefs, and practices of the first humans. 6. Tikal, Guatemala. In the lowland tropical forest of eastern Guatemala, the ancient Mayan city of Tikal sits shrouded in thick rainforest. Until the 19th century, some of Tikal's temples rose over the top of the dense jungle canopy and were taller than most modern buildings in the New World. At the end of the 10th century, though, the inhabitants of Tikal mysteriously disappeared, leaving only howler monkeys, spider monkeys, parrots, and other jungle life. Over time, archaeologists have uncovered 3,000 structures with more than 200 sculpted stone monuments and over 1/6 of a square mile altered area. Strikingly, many of the structures here remain undisturbed and intact, unlike many other archaeological sites around the world. At the center of the site, the ceremonial Great Plaza sits surrounded by steep pyramid-like temples paved with limestone and used for epic religious rites over the centuries. Several ball courts, including one in the main plaza, were also located. Here, ancient sporting events took place. It has been said that the penalty for losing any of the matches is death for the leader of the team. Some scholars believe the victors were treated to the honor of a ceremonial death. Temple 1, at the top of a vertical 170-foot staircase, requires a mountain goat to help one get back down. Temple 2, 145 feet above the Great Plaza, is surrounded by a number of other temples where visitors can climb to the top to get a view of the stunning scenery below. From above, visitors can see the white rooftops of other temples that poke through the forest canopy and whisper secrets of the hidden civilization and the mysteries of the Mayans. Why would they choose a location that was near no river or major body of water? Although no one is completely sure of what happened to the Mayans of Tikal, some believe drought may have been the reason why the civilization suffered. For now, the site remains a testament to the Mayans and is a site frozen in time. 5. Byzantine Church. In December 2020, the remains of a long-lost Byzantine church was discovered by archaeologists in Jerusalem. Located next to the foundations of a 2,000-year-old Jewish ritual bath, the structures were located not far from an area that was believed to have been the site of the Last Supper. Built on the spot where Judas was said to have betrayed Jesus before heading off to Roman soldiers, the church, with its finely carved stone elements, is believed to have been an important historical site. Named the Church of the Agony and the Church of All Nations, the building was found with Greek inscriptions on the floor for the memory and repose of the lovers of Christ. Accept the offerings of your servants to give the remission of sins. Researchers believe the inscription alludes to Jesus' sacrifice. The Church of All Nations is built over the rock on which Jesus is believed to have prayed in agony before he was crucified. It's near the foot of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, with a garden full of ancient olive trees. During construction of the modern-day church, which was completed in 1924, parts of the original floor were discovered and are now displayed under glass for protection and to offer insight into the time when the previous church was first constructed. The modern-day church is the third church to have been built on the site. Inside today's church, only natural light filters, with much of the interior left in semi-darkness to evoke a somber tone. In the ceiling domes, a star-studded night sky is recreated with olive branches reminiscent of the garden outside. Shockingly, a man was arrested in 2020 for trying to set fire to the church. After being spotted pouring a flammable liquid inside, he was quickly detained and questioned by a security guard. A number of the pews were scorched, but luckily, the fire didn't spread to other parts of the sacred site. An important part of the Catholic region, the site believed to have been referenced in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is one that remains sacred to all those who visit. Why do you think someone would want to burn this church down? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. 4. Sakahuaman. Sakahuaman is one of the most impressive Inca constructions in all of Cusco in Peru, but it is also one of the most mysterious ancient constructions on the planet. Built in with a zigzag pattern, the fortifications of Sakahuaman were built in 3 tiers with 22 walls that represent the teeth of a puma. The entire area is in fact the shape of a puma when viewed from above. The walls are built from precisely cut stones that weigh over 300 tons and fit tightly together like a jigsaw puzzle. American researcher Derek Cunningham analyzed the design of the fortress and reached the conclusion that the civilization that thrived here had ancient knowledge of astronomical alignments of the moon, sun, and the planet. It truly is a stunning display of ancient architecture. The archaeological site was once the heart of the Inca Empire. Researchers believe that the Incas were not the first people to build on the site, with sections originally constructed as early as 1100. A once vast complex, the inner area of Sakahuaman had 3 large towers and a temple dedicated to the sun, which is believed to be one of the most sacred places in the Inca Empire. Located within the main fortress, the Cochincanas, thought to have been an Inca cemetery, is just one of a number of spiritual places on the site. One of the main mysteries of Sakahuaman is how exactly the megaliths that made up the 3 main walls were moved into position. Without access to draft animals or the wheel or lever for construction, no one knows for sure how the Inca were able to achieve such an incredible construction, with some of the rocks so close together that you can't even slide a piece of paper between them. It's clear to see that the Inca had a secret to constructing their massive cities that still remains hidden. 3. Egypt's Bent Pyramid. 25 miles south of Cairo, Egypt, you will find the 4,600-year-old Bent Pyramid at Dashur. Strikingly different from the Great Pyramid at Giza, the Bent Pyramid has sloping sides that are believed to be the first attempts by ancient Egyptians to build a smooth-sided pyramid. As data was collected, researchers found that by studying particle accumulations collected inside the pyramid, they might be able to learn how it was constructed. Using thermal technology and particle analysis, they are trying to unlock the secrets of the construction. It was built by King Snefru, the first king of Egypt's 4th dynasty. The pyramid rises at a 54-degree angle at its lower part, then changes to a 43-degree angle as the pyramid rises. Inaccessible to the general public since 1965, the 331-foot-tall structure received much-needed restoration work, where experts fixed internal and external stairs, and added lighting and repaired stonework into the corridors and chambers of the pyramid, but the design of the pyramid may not have been planned. Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities shared that the architectural direction of the pyramid shifted because cracks began to show in the structure during construction, indicating it was unstable. After multiple attempts at building various pyramids, including the medium pyramid, which had too much of an acute angle, and the smaller red pyramid temples made from red limestone and smooth sides, it seems that Snefru was happy with this construction of the Bent Pyramid. It now stands as a symbol of changes in the methods used to build those final resting places of Egypt's ancient pharaohs. 2. Viking travel route artifacts. The warming climate isn't necessarily a cause for celebration, but historians have no doubt been able to look on the bright side of the global crisis. As ice began to melt in a mountain range in Norway, it revealed a previously unknown important trade network. Even more exciting is the trove of Viking artifacts that came to light as a result of the warming temperatures. Evidence that the Vikings sourced raw material from all over, the site offered up about 8,000 artifacts that had been frozen in the mountain range for more than 1,000 years. A leather shoe, a woolen mitten, and a tunic were just some of the objects found by archaeologists. Other items including feathered arrowheads, horseshoes, walking sticks, and kitchen utensils found along the path marked by stone cairns, which were mounds used as a landmark on hilltops. Piecing these artifacts together allowed researchers to determine that travelers moved through the mountains periodically, despite how remote they were and how harsh the weather conditions. The newly discovered route was believed to be in use between the years 300 and 1500 AD. The path was one of special significance, allowing researchers to determine that other seemingly impossible ways, such as this, were not necessarily barriers, but important communication routes for ancient people. 1. Stonehenge. Located on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England, the site of the Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument well known across the globe. One of the most studied archaeological landscapes, the massive prehistoric structure gets a lot of attention, but recent excavations by experts reveal what could be the biggest prehistoric site in the UK. A prehistoric ring that is 16 feet deep with 33-foot wide shafts located 2 miles from the Stonehenge is even bigger than the famed Neolithic Ring of Stones. Discovered by archaeologists at the University of Bradford using remote sensing technology, at least 20 prehistoric shafts were found in a pit structure made of partial circles that stretch about 1.2 miles in diameter. Using radiocarbon dating, researchers discovered that the shafts were dug around 2500 BC. Although scientists still don't know the purpose of the site, it shows that complex monumental structures within the landscape were built by Neolithic communities. The large dimension of the Circle of Wells makes it the largest Neolithic site in the United Kingdom, significantly larger than any comparative prehistoric monument in Britain. It's another fascinating glimpse into British prehistory and landscape archaeology. Number 10. Mystery Liquid. Between 1783 and 1861, over 1,500 people were laid to rest at the Trinity burial site in the English port city of Hull in East Yorkshire. Many were buried with grave goods, including coins, jewelry, and other keepsakes and symbolic items. But archaeologists were thrown for a loop earlier this year when they found a sealed glass bottle full of liquid between the legs of a body. Labeled Hull Infirmary, the blue bottle contained a mysterious brown liquid. It appeared as though someone had placed it in the grave deliberately, and it was unlike anything else the team had dug up during a large-scale excavation of the site. The Hull Infirmary was a hospital that was established in 1872, the year before the cemetery opened, and the burial belonged to a woman who died in her 60s. She suffered from the degenerative bone diseases, rickets, and osteoporosis. Tests revealed that the liquid contained sodium, potassium, and phosphorus, but no pharmaceutical substances. While awaiting more comprehensive results, researchers tentatively concluded that the bottle is probably filled with urine, but they don't know why. They also think the liquid could be some type of tonic beverage. These drinks were popular during the 19th century as a treatment for various medical ailments. While excavations are due to end soon, the ensuing study of the artifacts and human remains is expected to take several years. Number 9. Wari Mummy. Before the Inca civilization rose to power, an ancient civilization known as the Wari culture flourished in what is now Peru. From around 500 to 1000 AD, they lived throughout the country's highlands and along the coast. The society began to decline around 800 AD, and within 200 years, only a small number of its descendants remained. Buildings were shuttered and construction came to a halt as violence and looting rose. While the exact circumstances of the Wari civilization's collapse are unknown, evidence suggests that increasing encounters with rival groups destabilized the state structure, leading to its downfall. In 2008, archaeologists working at a site near Lima called Huacapuclana discovered the mummy of a Wari woman, along with the remains of 2 adults and a child. The mummy was the first intact burial to be found at Huacapuclana, and is believed to date back to around 700 AD. As excavations continued, around 30 well-preserved adult mummies were also unearthed there. The mummies are decorated with shockingly large eyes and are kind of creepy at first glance. Speaking with Reuters, a worker named Miguel Angel described the sight as startling and unexpected. The Wari people often sacrificed small children and buried them with adults, but their funerary customs and their culture in general are largely a mystery. The mummies found at Huacapuclana gave scientists a rare opportunity to learn more about Wari traditions, although their knowledge admittedly remains limited. Number 8. Vampire Child Burial. In 2018, archaeologists working in an ancient cemetery in Lugnano, Italy discovered the burial of a child with a rock jammed into his or her mouth. It's believed that the youth, dubbed the Vampire of Lugnano, may have died from malaria. The people who laid them to rest may have inserted the rock into their mouth for good measure, to prevent them from rising from the grave, spreading disease to others, or sucking the blood of innocent people. Describing the discovery as eerie and weird, excavation overseer and anthropologist David Soren explained that it was one of the more unusual burials that have been unearthed since he began leading the project in 1987. In fact, until the discovery of the so-called Vampire of Lugnano, researchers thought the cemetery was reserved exclusively for babies and toddlers. Bioarchaeologist Jordan Wilson told Live Science that the graveyard was only partially excavated and that the team was unsure whether they'd find more graves belonging to older children. Number 7. Mass death of animals. 9 million years ago, during the late Miocene epoch, dozens of giraffes, rhinos, horses, and saber-toothed cats traveled to watering holes in what is now Spain, desperately seeking relief amid severe drought. They died from starvation, dehydration, and getting stuck in the mud, and were quickly buried when rain returned to the region, leaving their bodies undisturbed by scavengers and the elements. Miners discovered one of the ancient bone-filled watering holes in 2007, and archaeologists have since identified 9 sites outside Madrid. In a recent study, researchers examined a collection of 9,000 bones found at a watering hole called Batallones 10. They counted dozens of species, including at least 15 large mammals such as extinct mastodons, saber-toothed cats, badgers, rhinos, cattle, horses, and musk deer, according to Live Science. The team also identified a new giraffe relative, the Cenitherium rex. It more closely resembles a giant moose than a modern giraffe, standing at roughly 9 feet tall and weighing around 2.2 tons. Experts identified the site as a watering hole based on the presence of amphibians and tortoises. They found that the animals died in 3 distinct episodes of drought. During those times, wildlife flocked to the area and refused to stray far from it. Consequently, the creatures ate all the vegetation, unwilling to leave the dwindling watering hole in search of food. They began to suffer from starvation and dehydration. As the water supply shrank, animals ventured into the mud to drink, got stuck, and died. Each period of mass death lasted weeks or months until the rain came and buried the remains in sediment. Sadly, it appears as though more tragic discoveries are to come. Speaking with Live Science, study leader David Martin Perea explained that the next step is for the team to dig deeper and further examine the deaths that occurred at the site. Number 6. Witches' carvings. The Church of St. Mary in Stoke Mandeville, England was built around 1070 AD. It initially served as a private chapel but was expanded for public use sometime before 1340. This communal house of worship remained in use until a new church replaced it in 1866, and it was demolished during the 1960s. While excavating the ruins of the abandoned medieval structure ahead of a high-speed rail project, archaeologists found strange carvings known as witches' marks. The stone etchings consisted of central drilled holes with spokes radiating outward, resembling a wheel. Experts believe the design may have been meant to entrap evil spirits. The depictions could also represent basic sundials or scratch dials, which were typically located near a church's southern door. These timekeeping mechanisms were used for signaling morning, midday, and evening prayer times. Another carving believed to be a witch's mark was used for determining the time of the next church service. Researchers are currently working to resolve unanswered questions about the site, including if there is another church beneath St. Mary's. Witches' marks dating from the early medieval period in the 19th century have been found near the entrances of churches, barns, houses, caves, and other structures throughout England. At the time, the belief in witchcraft was widespread. People used magical symbols and ritual objects in their daily lives as a way to protect themselves from harm. The images vary. In addition to spoked wheels, they're known to feature 6-petaled flowers known as daisy wheels, overlapping V's, and other symbols meant for warding off malicious spirits. Have you ever seen carvings like this before? Do you use any symbols to ward off evil spirits or bad luck? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 5. Prehistoric pregnant burial. Around 4,000 years ago, in what is now Hungary, a woman died while pregnant with twins. She and her unborn babies were cremated and buried in a Bronze Age urn cemetery alongside hundreds of other graves. Researchers recently examined the contents of the woman's burial as part of a larger effort to learn more about the little-understood Vatya culture that she was a part of. The grave contained noticeably lavish goods, including a golden hairpiece, a bronze neck ring, and 2 bone pins. The team also found the bones of 2 fetuses who perished when the woman died around 30 weeks into her pregnancy. She was in her late 20s to early 30s when she passed away. Based on her luxurious grave goods, she was a highly respected member of her community. It was also clear that every effort was taken to ensure that every detectable fragment of the woman and her children's cremated remains were placed into the urn, unlike other burials in the cemetery, which were far less complete. An analysis of her teeth and bones revealed that she likely migrated to the area as a child from the region encompassing modern-day Czech Republic. Her dignified burial suggests that she married an elite member of the Vatya community, only to have her life tragically cut short. The woman's cause of death is uncertain, but childbirth complications are a safe guess. Number 4. Skull Tower of Niz. After defeating Serbian rebels in 1809, victorious Turks built a tower with the decapitated skulls of 952 enemy soldiers. Known as the Cele Kula or the Skull Tower of Niz, the macabre structure is located in modern-day Serbia. It was commissioned by Turkish General Hershey Pasha as a warning to anyone else who might be tempted to go against his word. Measuring 15 feet tall and 13 feet wide, the Skull Tower originally consisted of 56 rows of 17 skulls each. It was built during a widespread rebellion against the Ottoman Empire known as the Serbian Revolution, which lasted from 1804 to 1817. In what became known as the First Serbian Uprising in 1809, the vastly outnumbered Serbs realized their options for fighting against the Turks were limited. With 36,000 enemy troops at their doorstep, it became clear that their only realistic choices were to surrender or flee. But Commander Stevan Sindelic refused to go down without a fight, in a last-ditch effort to eliminate as many Turks as possible, and as a final show of disrespect towards Pasha, he walked into a fully stocked gunpowder room and shot a gunpowder keg. The gesture outraged Pasha, who ordered his men to mutilate the Serbian fighters' corpses. The dead rebels were beheaded and their skulls were used to build the morbid monument. The tower was topped with Sindelic's skull. Meanwhile, their skins were stuffed with straw and shipped to Istanbul as proof of Pasha's victory. The Serbs finally drove the Ottomans out in 1878, and in 1892, the Serbian government built a chapel around the tower. Many families retrieved the skulls of their fallen loved ones. Today, only 59 skulls remain at the site, which attracts some 30,000 visitors every year. Number 3. Ancient Child's Burial. While searching for World War II artifacts recently in Kiblos village in Pamu County, Estonia, a team of archaeologists unexpectedly found an ancient grave containing the remains of a young child. The discovery was made in an agricultural field where an array of other artifacts have been unearthed, including knives, spearheads, and bracelets. Unlike most late antiquity burials in the region, the grave wasn't covered with rocks, giving no clues to its presence until it was encountered by accident. Found just 15 inches underground, the burial consisted of the child's bones and jewelry, suggesting that the individual was a girl. Interestingly, the grave goods contained at least one adult-sized ring. Speaking with ERR News, archaeologist and excavation leader Matti Mandel explained that the next step is to examine the bones to determine how old the person was when they died. The team is also trying to identify the child. Remains found at the Kiblos cemetery have been dated between the 10th and 13th centuries, but many of the graves were ruined due to farming, complicating the ability to properly understand their context. Number 2. Nazi Bunker. Let's face it, secret bunkers are creepy by nature, no matter what they look like or how nice they are on the inside. But they're even more disturbing when they're associated with a dark chapter in history. While building an underground parking lot in July of this year, construction workers in the Polish city of Lublin discovered a World War II-era Nazi bunker that was built during German occupation. Construction plans were put on hold, and archaeologists were called in to investigate. Found 23 feet underground, the wooden structure consists of a staircase that leads to 3 separate corridors. The team unearthed mineral water bottles made in Germany and the Czech Republic, both German and Red Army ammunition that had been fired, suggesting that a battle took place inside the bunker. Excavations are ongoing, and archaeologists have no idea what other artifacts they might find. They are checking to see if there are any unexploded bombs before they continue investigating. The Soviets invaded Poland just 2 weeks after the Nazis attacked and occupied the country's eastern region until the summer of 1941, when the German army drove them out during Operation Barbarossa. The Nazis controlled the area until the summer of 1944, when the Red Army took it back over. Number 1. Tooth tumors. While excavating a Gothic cemetery in Lisbon, Portugal in 2010 to 2011, archaeologists discovered something bizarre: a calcified mass covered with teeth, situated near the pelvis of a 45-year-old woman's skeletal remains. At first, the team did not know what the object was. They initially speculated that it was a fetus or the product of an ectopic pregnancy. Eventually, they determined that it was a type of ovarian cyst called a teratoma. Teratomas occur when germ cells multiply abnormally, forming hair, teeth, bones, and other mature tissues. In many cases, they are benign or harmless, but they can also become large, painful, and cancerous. Measuring 1.7 inches at its widest point, the mass contained 5 malformed teeth, according to a study on the tumor. The afflicted woman died sometime between the 15th century and 1755, when an earthquake destroyed the cemetery and the nearby church and convent of Carmo. It is unknown whether the cyst contributed to her death, but her skeleton seemed unaffected by it. Surprisingly, these tumors have been discovered at other archaeological sites as well. In 2013, a 1600-year-old teratoma was found with a woman's remains at a Roman necropolis in Spain. It's also unknown whether the mass was benign or if it played a role in the woman's death. Teratomas are actually quite common in today's world, comprising roughly 20% of all ovarian tumors. But researchers are still learning about their history, and this off-putting but important discovery is helping them do so. Thanks for watching. Which one of these discoveries was the creepiest to you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!